All right. Well, welcome back to another edition of the Paul's Body Engineering Podcast. This time, all the way from, Bali at this point in time, although she's tracked all over the world of recent times. I've got Leah Marie, the WNBF Australia President. Welcome, Leah. How are you?
Thanks. Very good. Thank you, Paul. Very happy to be here and having this chat.
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, it was certainly a very busy 2024 for you, particularly at the back end. Take us back, firstly, to the decision around becoming President of Australia, obviously, how that unfolded. What was the reasoning behind it? Because obviously, you've been in the health and fitness industry a very long time, been a competitor,
Yes.
pro,
Yeah.
so you've experienced it on multiple levels. So, was it a case that you wanted a new challenge, or the opportunity was just too good to turn away, or was it just a sliding doors moment? Talk us through that process.
Yeah. It's interesting because it was an unexpected offer to
Sure.
begin with. It wasn't something that had been, mind you, no, let me backtrack a bit. I'm definitely the sort of person who likes to have lots of things on
Yep.
and to be part of something deeply from multiple angles. So
Okay.
it makes sense that I'm an athlete, I'm a posing coach, physique coach, like, having different angles to the same thing is my jam. I absolutely love it. And initially, like when I competed in 2023, like WNBF wasn't even planned in my season because I
Mm.
was a pro with other federations. I would have to be giving up pro cards to do WNBF as an amateur. And at that point, I wasn't sure if I was ready. So I went and supported a client at a WNBF posing workshop. And Joey, who is my coach,
Mm.
was there. And I looked at Joey and I went, I've got to get in. Like, I've got to get into this federation. There was just something about how transparent WNBF is around everything. Like not only, of course, drug testing, which is extremely important to WNBF, but even the detail around judging, the detail around the criteria, and the detail in what you need to do as an athlete between deciding to compete with WNBF and getting on stage. Like everything was so organized and laid out and made sense and had integrity around values and action. Like I know that's what integrity is, right? Like
Yeah.
living your values. But I hadn't experienced that in a way as a competitor before. And so we put it on my season. I gave up affiliations as I needed in order to do so. Of course, was very fortunate to win some pro cards and then also go and experience worlds. And I know we'll talk about worlds soon. But after that season, I guess because I was now a WNBF pro, active as a coach, I represented Australia at Worlds. When it came time for the then president to want to pass on WNBF, I guess I was one of the people at the forefront of his mind. And I had reached out and said, "Can I sponsor the show as a posing coach?" Like a
Okay.
couple of months before. So when Sebastian said, "Oh, I'd love to have a chat with you," I thought it was about that. And then all of a sudden it was, a change in career path. And, it wasn't anything about needing to move on from the federation because of the federation. It was a life choice, a career choice. And my first thought was just don't jump in because, like actually take stock of the opportunity, the challenges, where the federation's at, take my time with the decision. Um, and it's interesting because, I was given time to make the decision, but one thing that was said was we don't have to do season A. You could just focus on getting your head around everything and do season B. And I instantly went, if season A doesn't happen, the Federation, that's not good. Like nobody wants a cancelled show, right? That is the worst scenario. I'm not stepping in as president and my first move is cancelling the show. That ain't happening. So I spoke to the people I needed to. I got advice from the people I needed it from. And I said yes. And I had 12 weeks to get season A together.
Ooh,
Uh, um,
pressure.
it was slightly formed, but one thing was like systems weren't yet. I mean, WNBF had been for 6 months, you know what I mean? There
Sure.
had been
Yeah.
one season before. So systems weren't quite set up and like just the logistics of things. It was a lot to get my head around. And the 12-week time frame, it was overwhelming, but I learned so much and I'm like, this is what I always do. Like, I want that challenge. I want to keep growing. And I knew WNBF was something athletes needed.
Mm.
And I knew, I mean, I don't know how this will sound, but I knew I could be the person to give athletes what they need and want and have that platform.
Yep.
And I felt like I had to say yes, you know?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a beast in terms of running a show, as you've experienced. I've seen it firsthand, backstage and front stage. I've never done it personally, but I know how much time and energy and effort and, like you said, systems and all the little things that people don't actually see that goes into making it as synchronized and streamlined as possible. So the fact that you stepped in and pulled it off in 12 weeks is pretty impressive. And then obviously rolled into season B, which was a pretty cool experience. Like from a selfish perspective, I obviously had some athletes, but I also got to see Nathan Wallace on stage, which I'm a massive fan of his
Yeah. Yeah.
fanboy moment. So that was pretty cool as well, and that obviously probably gave even more credibility to the federation, the fact that he turned up and then won his division as well. How was that experience for you in terms of having done the A show, rolled into the B show, took what you learnt and made it even better, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's interesting. So knowing that season A was about getting how on earth do I do this in
Mm,
place, and it was like replicate it for season B, and it was good that season A was a smaller show as a starting point, and I knew season B was going to be big, like our biggest show yet, and I think there's always a challenge when something is new that people kind of keep it at arm's length to see what happens.
yeah.
Whereas with WNBF, I think because there's such a deep, rich history, excuse me, and the reputation kind of precedes itself, and then you get to kind of uphold that and make it better and make it aligned with your country. I feel like we have had a lot of support and eyes on us, but action
Mm,
from the community, which has been absolutely amazing. Like even when I took on this federation, I was like, I don't know how people are going to perceive me. Are they like, she's a posing coach? Who does she think she is? All these doubts are normal. You're human.
sure.
They come up. But I was overwhelmed by just how much support I've felt and
Mhm.
how much support the federation has, but also me personally, because that helps you to keep showing up and to keep making it better. And you're in it, like community is so important. And then so come season B, when the athletes, all athletes are so important. I want to say that I don't want to take anything away from first timers, novice, like
Yep.
seasoned competitors who are yet to be pro, like, you know what I mean? Like the sport needs everybody.
Yes.
But I agree, there's something special when some quote unquote well-known or big name bodybuilders or athletes in general kind of go, I want to be on that stage,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm.
And it does draw attention, and that attention is wonderful for the federation, and
Of
I'm
course it is.
very grateful for that. I feel when you create something special, people are drawn to it, and like I said, like people from regardless of its first time up to seasoned competitor, but like when pros want to start again as an amateur to show that they actually are worthy of that status,
Mm.
it's something else because WNBF standards, as you saw at Worlds,
Yep.
they're like up there, you know?
Mm. Absolutely. Unreal.
Mm.
So sitting back after that second show, did you have an opportunity to reflect? And I guess going on from that, were you intending to go to Worlds anyway? I know you have obviously like an AGM sort of thing of all presidents, but was there an intention to go? And did you know that athletes were going to potentially come along, or was that still somewhat of the unknown?
That's a good question because again, I think it's when someone offers you an opportunity, they potentially want to make it as um achievable as possible. So a lot
Mm.
of things were kind of downplayed. Like you don't necessarily have to do season A. Don't even think about taking athletes to Worlds this year. That's not how my brain works. My brain goes, how do we get there? Like, you know what I mean?
Are
The
you a high
higher
achiever,
achiever,
Leah?
self-confessed. You know what I mean? But like something to do, like why not just aim for the best outcome possible and make it
Course.
happen? That's my go-to. I bring that to how I am as an athlete, how I am
Yep.
as anything I do, right? So I knew straight away we had athletes at Worlds in 2023, and I was one of them. And I'm like, well, if in the first season people wanted to go, why not actually make more of it, that it is an actual possible thing.
Mm.
Was I expecting 10 athletes? No. Was I expecting 5-figure fit body athletes? No, but holy dooly, that was the most special thing to see athletes on stage and go, four of the top five are Aussies, and there's only
Yeah.
four Aussies on that stage, and they're all in top five. Like, really special moments. But the other thing that was important to me, like I've mentioned community, when I know we're all different. Some of us keep to ourselves. I can be that person depending what hat I have on. Some people are super connectors.
Mm.
Some people, you know what I mean? Like everyone's different. But one thing I desired as an athlete was to feel part of something,
Mm.
like I knew I was Team Australia. I was wearing the jacket, but I wanted to feel part of something. And so coming into 2024 Worlds, I really wanted the athletes who chose to go to Boston to feel like it was bigger than them as an athlete, if that
Yep.
makes sense.
I get it. Yeah.
And as soon as I kind of even started to think about creating that space, like people like Kelly, who I know is a client of yours, and Renee, who's a client of Joey's, like these people who just connect people together,
Mm.
it just kind of then took on this life of its own where athletes were Team Australia.
Mm.
And that was so heartening because, like I said, community and like the federation can provide a platform, but it's only as good as the coaches, the athletes, the community, the audience members who support. Like
Yeah.
being part of something makes it so much more special than this is another show.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. And it's a big financial commitment too, because obviously,
Yeah.
all the athletes, coaches have to get there, accommodation, all the things. But as you mentioned, the camaraderie within the team, it wasn't, bodybuilding is obviously considered an individual sport, but in this instance, it certainly wasn't. There was, backstage, there was banter, there was enjoyment, there was sharing of products and stuff as needed. So, yeah, that community was certainly created, and obviously you were at the head of that. So it must have been
Yeah.
upon completion of Worlds, when we were all there for, I think it was Sophie's division that went into the evening on
Yes.
Sunday, very late. You must have felt a huge sense of satisfaction and probably relief as well, I guess.
Yeah, it was very rewarding. My heart felt really full because I could see how much it meant to the athletes.
Mm.
Like that was, and I mean, the one disappointment, which is quite funny. So I can't remember if it was figure or fit body. I think it was fit body. All the athletes are kind of the same height.
Mm.
And I think the short category was capped at 162 or
Oh yeah.
101. So if you're 163, which is usually you're a short athlete, you were put into tall. And so the reason why that was a disappointment was because Renee was the only short athlete.
Yeah.
So the four Aussies who were in the top five, like Renee was in a different class just because the height class was set so low.
Yep.
And I was like, Renee's like probably the athlete who wants to be on stage with her buddies and really support and celebrates. And yeah, didn't have that opportunity. I think that was the only part where I was like, that would have been so good for Renee to have that too.
Yeah. The synchronicity of that, and just,
Yeah.
obviously photo ops and stuff would have made a brilliant sort of, side
Yeah.
note, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, like, I guess from a caliber of athlete perspective, in terms of those that came, they were all world class. Like Nathan did really well. The figure and fit body girls
Yes.
did really well.
Aiden.
Sophie McKinney did really well. Caden did it exceptionally well. Like everyone stood up and held their own. So you must have been incredibly proud of just
Yeah.
that representation alone.
And it was great because like Joseph in pro men's physique as well. It's like we had
Mm.
every single category covered as
Yeah.
well, like across the amateur pro, which was absolutely amazing. And I think that those athletes having the experience they had, they get to keep those memories, but they're going to share that with others as
Yeah.
well. And so
Yeah.
the buzz of it all can only keep growing. And one thing with federations, of course, we need volunteers.
Yeah.
Like we can't do it on our own. We do not do this for the money. Like you said it's expensive to compete, it's expensive to run shows.
Yeah.
And one thing that is continuing to build, like I said, it's the community. But I've already got almost more volunteers than I need for season A. And now don't pull out people, this is important. Like, but it just shows that as an athlete, if you compete and then you can feel disconnected when you're in your
Yeah.
improvement season, or
Yeah.
if your recovery is rough, you can want to isolate, and then you go into your build and you haven't connected and you don't know how to reconnect. One thing that set me up to take on this federation is, as soon as I competed, I wanted, like I said, I wanted in everywhere. I volunteered, behind the scenes, and had been part of behind the scenes of so many shows with different federations. So I got that, but what I was missing, it didn't feel like community to me. I didn't have that alignment with me
Mm.
personally that WNBF does. But I think that as an athlete who wants to be in the sport, find ways to stay involved, because it makes you a better athlete. It gives you insights you wouldn't know of otherwise. I think it's an important element that maybe not all athletes know.
Well, it gives you a greater appreciation for what goes into setup. At the end of the day, you don't have an event without athletes, but the like I said, the back end stuff that is required, and the months and months of planning, and then obviously the operation of the day and ensuring that it flows according to the schedule is really important. So, as an athlete, if you do get involved, you get to see that and feel it
Yeah.
and understand and have a greater appreciation. So, like you said, the next time you come around, you're probably going to enjoy it even more
Yeah.
because of the
And
sheer
you'll know
fact
you'll know the importance of when somebody says stay here and don't move as an athlete, you
of.
stay there, because once you volunteered and you said athletes just stay there, and you turn around and they've gone, you're like, where's my athletes?
Oh, before I was judging in India, I was running backstage, and the amount of times that they would disappear on me, it was so frustrating, but also so stressful because you didn't know where they went. Oh, so yeah, I can completely appreciate that.
Exactly.
Oh, just that 30-second delay can obviously have a ripple effect through the entire show.
Yeah.
So how's let's fast forward. How's 2025 shaping up? So obviously you made an announcement the other day. Do you want to obviously recap on that and then how the year itself is looking?
Yes, thank you. So one thing that came out of 2024 was the first for WNBF to get out of, or not get out of, but expand beyond
Yep.
Queensland. Yeah. So
Yep.
many, many coaches approached me or have spoken to me saying, please come into this state because of this. We want our athletes to be here. WNBF is needed because of all these reasons. And I already knew, if WNBF is here to stay, we need to grow. Like it's an important part of the federation. And so, yeah, the announcement, was it this week?
Yeah.
Yeah, the announcement this week
Yeah.
was that we have secured our first state show in Melbourne. So on the 9th of September, it'll be our first state show. So that means we've got 3 shows this year. We've got Brisbane, which is nationals on the 10th of May,
Mhm.
and then Melbourne, which is 9th of September, and then nationals in October is the 4th of October. So now we've got 3. Now, of course, as soon as that announcement went out, it was like, but what about New South Wales? But what about Tasmania?
Of
But what
course.
about... So I just want to say I hear all of it.
Yep.
And as much as I say I'm a high achiever, gung ho, let's do everything, you also need to make sure resources and systems are in place to make it the best experience.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to water down WNBF, because I need to be in as many states as quickly as possible.
Sure.
So we're going to keep growing.
Yep.
There's new collaborations forming, there's new connections forming, it's a whole beast in and of itself to grow, but we're not stopping at Melbourne.
Fantastic. So let me pose this question to you then. Do you think in the future, given that that is the intention to grow within Australia and obviously, um, get across multiple states, is there a possibility that the Worlds could be hosted here at some stage?
Good question. No, I do know that there's talks about Worlds finally leaving the US, which I
Because
think is
obviously it's
very,
been there for a long, long time, right?
and has only ever been
Mm.
in the US, I
Yep.
believe. So I think that's a really healthy first step.
Yep.
And I do know that of the world, Australia is the hardest place to get to. So I
Yes.
don't think it would be first on their vision, because
Okay.
Europe is closer. Europe has had the longest standing affiliations. The first affiliate I think was for Spain, and so I'm not saying that we will never, like they know we exist. We strongly made our presence felt. But I do think that over time, there's opportunities for a more international show in
Mm.
Australia. don't think Worlds would come yet, just because the number of athletes who would afford to be here
Yeah, sure.
would be a limiting factor. But in terms of having, I mean, our national shows are open to internationals, but to have an actual international show, I think there's opportunities. And of course, there's opportunities like I need a pro-am show.
Yeah, of course.
We
Yeah.
we need enough pros to make that happen.
Yep.
But that's another question I have about, do you have a pro show yet? I'm like, not yet, but we're growing our pros enough that that'll happen. It helps
Mhm.
that New Zealand is growing as well. So New Zealand's growing their pros, and, there's opportunities, and it's all coming, is all I'll say. Like, the planning is deep and a long-term vision.
Perfect. There you go. All right. Yeah, well, you got to think ahead, right, to grow. So that's very encouraging for all the athletes listening. What about divisions, categories? Is there any potential development there in terms of adding other divisions? Because obviously, when you compare WNBF to some of the other federations around, they generally have a lot more on offer in terms of
Yeah.
divisions and to
I
suit
can
certain body types. So
I can share a couple of initial insights. I can kind of tease a couple of things, and I may even share an announcement that's going to come later this month, maybe.
okay.
No, I mean, the announcement will come and see if I share it. So first of all, the reason we don't have so many categories is because what you potentially run the risk of is an athlete winning bikini and sport, or doing bikini sport and fitness and winning two, and it kind of really clouds what is the actual criteria.
Yes.
And we know, for example, if an athlete is told they're too big for bikini because there's sport, because there's fitness, you've seen the bikini pros.
Mm,
Potentially, they are a really good bikini competitor
yeah.
for WNBF. But because other federations have a softer look, which is fine, like that's no slight, that's just a difference.
Yep.
I think potentially athletes are missing that they may fit into the categories we have without watering it down to cater to everybody, so everybody fits exactly, instead
Mm.
of going, this is a slow sport. Keep working, keep growing into the category you're in. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's one of the risks. And on that note, I know this is a classes thing, but I'll talk about categories a bit more as
Sure.
well. The reason we don't allow crossover between novice and open, I
Hmm.
think, is a really important one, because there seems to be, I don't know if it's growing more and more or if it's always been there, but there seems to be like an urgency for new athletes to get pro cards. And I'm very aware that I am one of the rare people that came out of nowhere and won pro shows in my first season internationally. Like, I'm aware that I'm a weird person to talk about this, but it does happen,
Yeah, it does
people,
happen. Of course it
it
does.
does happen. But set that aside, it is not the norm in the sport.
Mm,
And I don't think we should normalize a first timer or a novice athlete wanting a pro card immediately,
mm,
because then it devalues what a pro is and the effort, the work, the years it takes to get to that standard.
yep.
And it also then tells a novice, if you're not a pro, you're not good enough.
Yeah,
And it's not the case.
I get that.
So I think I like the fact that I introduced, if you win the novice, you get automatic, you like get your button into open and see how you
Yeah,
start. Earn
absolutely.
your place, earn
Mm,
your place in the opens, you
yep.
know?
Yep.
So I think that's an important distinction, because we don't just want as many athletes on stage and as many categories and classes as possible. It looks good for numbers on stage, it brings money in, which would be wonderful, but it's not the sport of bodybuilding that
Mm,
we're about.
absolutely. But you know what? Like, I think that holds a lot of integrity for a lot of people. And you're right. Like, it took me 5 years to turn pro. It's not. Yes, there are the outliers that, like yourself, that might win in their first or second year, and that just. But you might have been training for 10 years
I
prior.
was going to say, you
So
don't
there's
see the backstory to that, do you?
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. But just going on the season B show last year, some of the lineups were of immense quality, even in the novice lineups. So I think just in general, people are, even just as a community, their health and fitness is taking more of a priority. Therefore, that then rolls into obviously the bodybuilding space and those lifting their game. Like the Fit Body, I think it was the Masters lineup, was one of the best I've seen at your show. It was incredible.
I
So yeah,
will say, for 2025, we are prepared to split those classes as well. The over sheer number, like I don't think we've ever seen a figure fit body season like it.
Yeah. I know.
So
They all came out
yeah,
of the woodwork at the same time.
yeah. So we are definitely going to be splitting those classes once the 11, 12 number athlete, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, and doing the overall. So that will come in for others. Because I do know as an athlete, that was a lot
Hmm.
to deal with on stage. So I just want to acknowledge that as well.
Yeah, fair enough too. But I mean, the facility you're at certainly
But
caters for it.
yeah,
But they were one line, so it was good in that regard. In terms of
that's so true. Yeah, that's so true.
what about additional? I always get category and division mixed up, but like
Yeah, additional
men's
categories.
fitness, women's fitness, those sorts of things that other feds have that cater for a specific body type. Is that something that's on the radar? Because I know it's not at Worlds, but is it something
Yeah.
domestically that you would consider?
Something there's always discussions about, and
Mm.
those are sort of discussions where the decision-making process is speaking with other affiliates, as in WNBF affiliates around the world, and seeing what fits and seeing what the criteria would be, speaking to the judges, really getting a lay of the land, because athletes can say, I want to do this, but maybe they do fit, they've just been told something different.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a work in progress, but like I said, it's never going to be as many categories as other feds. One thing I do want to say that we will be introducing, which an announcement will come, is adaptive bodybuilding or physically challenged bodybuilding.
Unreal.
So when I was judging in Malaysia, they didn't have that category, but in their men's physique, I think it was either the novice or the junior, they had an athlete with cerebral palsy.
Right.
And the inspiration and the showing what is possible in terms of getting over life's adversities, and like it's such an inspiring category.
Mm.
And I've already had people reaching out asking if I have a category for those in a wheelchair. So it's something straight away where I'm like, in terms of bodybuilding and inclusivity and showing what is possible, the extremes we can take our bodies despite there's some challenges we may have. So that is definitely coming.
Unreal.
Um, yeah. So others, there's chats on the global scale about some other categories that people ask for all the time, but I'm not going to share much about that yet.
That's all right. Watch the
There's always,
space.
yeah, exactly. There's always discussions, and I'm
Yeah.
always aware of what athletes are asking for, while also holding the integrity of why we do what we do
Oh,
and not wanting
absolutely.
to water. So yeah, bit of a tease, bit of an announcement, but yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's exciting. Like that, just I guess the consideration, but you're right. It needs to be done in a way that is conducive to, an appropriate decision for the federation, for the future of the athletes, etc. Not just because, well, let's just get more people on stage. It needs to be done in the right manner. So that's good. And the fact that it's considered at a world level then gives, if there is a new category, I guess the opportunity to compete at a world level as well. So there's that stepping stage to, compete wherever the worlds may end up. Australia one day, maybe.
I did have a question from an athlete saying, because we've added grandmasters as a class,
Yep.
because obviously the number of athletes 50 plus, especially in categories like figure fit body.
Yes.
So we have added that. And I had the question of, is it going to be a pro class? And so one thing to know about being a WNBF affiliate is our pros have to align with the global rules and the global classes on offer. So currently there is no Grandmasters Pro at that level, so
Okay.
I'm not allowed to offer it as a pro division here. However, saying that, I am in the place to go, oi, if we're going to do Grandmasters, let's celebrate the pro level of it. Is that something that would be considered? And then it goes to like a global kind of discussion.
Okay. So you asked the question. Yeah, it's a good idea, right? You know, there's no discrimination against Asian bodybuilding, so why not celebrate? But I mean, I love the fact that you have a Masters Pro card for the 40 plus. I think that's a really integral piece and quite unique for your federation as well, because you know we lift and train for years and years and years, and you get past 40, but sometimes you just can't compete with the youth who have started lifting at 16.
And that's the
So
difference now, especially for women. Like usually fit body, you would peak in your 40s because
yeah.
of muscle and years training and things. But I honestly think that now, like the generations below me, and I'm only 41, but the generations below me, it is normal for women to want to have muscle. Whereas
Mm.
when I was, in my teenage years, women with muscle wasn't a thing. You know what
No,
I mean? You want to be skinny. Like you
yeah,
want to be skinny,
that's
not
right. It's
strong.
a complete shift. Yeah.
So I feel like the athletes are going to start getting younger. Like I've added a teen class to all of the categories as well.
Oh,
With
perfect. Okay.
because there's the demand for it because they are starting to lift earlier.
Yep.
Whereas I don't think a decade ago or even 5 years ago that would have been as prominent either.
No.
Um, It'll be interesting what that does to the level that we see at certain age groups if they were starting younger, It's kind of
Oh,
exciting.
absolutely. Well, you'll probably find that there'll just be a flow-on effect of the youth into your teens or your under 21s, and then obviously, the various other categories. But yeah, you would imagine, given the shift in terms of focus, like you said, from being the skinny person to now the athletic-looking person, you're probably going to find that the popularity of this particular sport will just grow and grow and grow, particularly over the next 5 to 10, I would imagine.
Exactly. I do think that runs the risk, and I know that Simon, who's president of New Zealand, is very passionate about education, and I
Yeah.
think this is something that will flow in to Australia too. Like he and I have chats, getting into the schools
Mm.
and actually educating around not only are drugs illegal,
Yep.
but also why they're illegal, their health risks, and also just how prevalent this is. But as teenagers, the risks, you know what I mean? So I feel like as this culture grows, there's more need for that education piece. And WNBF, especially in New Zealand and Australia, like we know we have a role to play.
Mm.
And I think that's really important. So that's something again else that in the background, like we're working on is how do we educate those coming up to make smart decisions so that they're not banned for 10 years. But
Oh,
you know,
absolutely. No, that's incredibly good to hear because you're right. Like I see it firsthand. Multiple gyms across the state, the country, whatever. Teens who are clearly enhanced, yet they haven't reached their natural potential, and unfortunately, they can't go backwards. And like you said, it's a 10-year ban if they do test positive. So, yeah. But the health implications, the shortening of life, all these things can roll off the back of that purely by an uninformed or uneducated decision. So if you can get in early and educate them, it's going to, well, effectively improve their quality of life and help them make better decisions.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Talk about just briefly talk about the collaboration with Simon because I know I talked to Simon a lot. I competed in his first ever show, and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
incredibly passionate about bodybuilding, ridiculously passionate, shall we say?
Yes, he's
And I know he was very keen at one stage to try like an Oceania sort of arrangement where there's a New Zealand versus Australia sort of scenario or something along those lines. But the collaboration between the two, given it's only a 3 hour flight, it must make you really encouraged to know that you can get competitors out of New Zealand over there, but we can also go over there, right?
Yeah, so where we're at currently, and you'll notice, like even on Instagram, like Simon collaborates every second post he does with Australia, which is great because growing the sport, you know what I mean? It just helps all up. So definitely competing in New Zealand is open to Australian athletes. You just need a WNBF Australia membership, and vice versa. New Zealand athletes can come over; they have a membership there. Simon judges our shows, I'm judging his shows, and we work very closely together to make sure there's alignment
Mm,
because WNBF has judging alignment. No matter where you go, you know how you're going to be judged.
yep.
The criteria is there, the scorecards are there. So that's great. But we want alignment in, like I'm currently another announcement coming is I've got a brand new website coming. So when Reggio's open, it'll be on the new website, which I'm testing today, fingers crossed. And so that we want consistency in look, we want consistency in expectations. So an athlete doesn't go from one website to another and go, how do I register?
Yeah.
You know, and then in terms of collaborating with shows, well, there are definitely plans because there's the opportunity. Like I said, a pro-am show, it makes sense that it would be Oceania because why would you limit, the why would you limit it otherwise?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely we're working together a lot behind the scenes. Athletes already have those the experiences there if they want to compete, New Zealand and Australia. We collaborate with timing of shows, like we're not stepping on each other's toes, like
Yep.
all of that sort of thing. And he's got Auckland for the first time, so New Zealand's growing.
Yep.
Auckland on the 30th of August, and I believe Christchurch is the 11th of October. It's the week after ours.
Yep.
So yeah, we work closely together. He's definitely the most enthusiastic person I've ever met, which is awesome. It's really good energy.
Oh, of course it
But
is.
he's also so open and supportive, as
Yeah.
am I. So I think that like it's a really good, we bounce off each other really well, and we both come at it as what's best for the athletes. And if one of us has an opinion about something, we not only go, what's in it for the what's best for the athletes from what they think, but
Mm.
what's best for the sport and what they don't yet know. What do they need to be educated about to bring them on this journey?
Absolutely. And I guess, given it's the largest natural fed in the world, there's opportunity in terms of in Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, like you've just got to look at the international spectrum, and there's so much opportunity to compete and travel internationally, not just in Australia and obviously New Zealand as well, which, given Southeast Asia is so close and so accessible, it just gives, competing internationally was one of my goals in my last season. So it's a great opportunity to just experience something a little bit different as well.
Definitely. And on the new website, there's actually a page on how to compete internationally,
Oh,
and
perfect.
with steps just in terms of get our membership, email me to let me know, get the email from me confirming, and then you can register in the other country. It's that straightforward.
There you
The
go.
only one that is different is Worlds.
Yep.
With Worlds, you have to qualify by competing on a national stage in Australia, and
Yep.
that will never change. There's
Yep.
no bypassing your country if you're going to represent your country.
Absolutely.
But
No, fair enough.
for other athletes, they may just be like, I'm going to be in this part of the world and I want to compete, and my season doesn't match with WNBF Australia. Like, that's not an issue at all. It's only for Worlds when you're representing the
Yep.
country.
Got it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, well, that's exciting. It's yeah, 2025 certainly shaping up to be a big one for you in particular, but also the Fed. And the level of interest from my perspective, I know is very popular. So I can only imagine, in terms of what you're receiving is probably 10 times more. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Leah. I'll wrap it up there. I won't chew up any more of your time, but so in terms of the website, that's coming very, very shortly in terms of registration. People can obviously contact WNBF Australia via Instagram. Is there any other social handles or anything like that?
Instagram or admin@wnbfaustralia.com
Okay.
is the I would say that if it's just a question, yeah, Instagram's always a great connecting place because then I can follow you as an athlete as well, which is always nice. And yeah, kind of grow from there, but you'll also be able to see if I've seen your message and respond, and yeah,
Yep.
but either is completely fine. And just
Perfect.
keep an eye on the socials, which is WNBF Australia, because that's where the announcements will be teased and where they'll come. And there's a lot going on,
Mm,
so expect to see a lot. But I would say if anyone wants to be involved, just reach out and let us know because we want to bring people on this journey with us.
absolutely. And in terms of like posing workshops and stuff, that's all in the
Yeah, oh
making.
yes, that's coming too. We're just locking in the venue and then the schedule for that will happen. There's
Amazing.
also some online information sessions
Okay.
because we're a big country, lots of states, and we can't get to everywhere, but we know people do travel obviously to compete with us.
Yep.
So there'll be some online info sessions and coaches will be welcome to that as well, of course.
Perfect. Amazing. Yeah, there you go. All inclusive. So that's really good. Fantastic. Well, to finish up, I'll hit you with my personality question because that every guest gets that, and that would be who would you invite to dinner? So this is obviously personal to you, and it can be anyone, alive or dead, fiction, non-fiction. You could have a few. You could have a house party if you wanted to.
I love that you primed me for this question because my first thought was these questions are always the hardest. But
Yeah.
then straight away, my response, and I think I've thought about this before because my response was this is so obvious, could seem weird. I will say
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Hey, look, I've had weird. Don't worry.
Two people who I love for different reasons, and I think they would either bounce off each other and get on well, or would just be really entertaining to watch argue, would be Ricky Gervais
Good one.
and Russell Brand.
Oh my God. Wow. Couldn't
So
imagine that.
I love Russell Brand's like his spiritual journey, but the way he talks about mindfulness and the
Yep.
way, I think both of them have a way of questioning status quo.
Yes.
which really aligns with me. Like, I don't want to be a sheep for the sake of it. I want to
Sure.
question. Um, so I admire that. Ricky Gervais, obviously massive animal rights activist.
Mm.
Again, like those that's really interesting. But from a spirituality perspective, I think obviously they're both very, very witty, but I think they have very different bents. So I think it would be extremely interesting to be part of that conversation.
Interesting to say the least. The conversation would take so many tangents. It would,
Yeah.
wow, yeah. Hopefully I'll get an invite because
Yeah.
just to, I'll pay a ticket. Oh, seriously,
Yeah.
that would be unreal. Oh, there you go. Okay, good answer. And I haven't had either of them before, so that's a first. Unreal. Well, thank you, Leah. I really appreciate your time. As I said, 2025 is going to be a very big year. Look, just in general for natural bodybuilding, I think there's a big shift. Obviously the integrity of WNBF with the polygraphing as well as urine testing, as well as your judging standards, which are worldwide, obviously is quite unique to you. But in general, as an athlete, there's so much choice now, which I think is fantastic. So yeah, it's really good to see that the popularity of the sport hasn't declined, but there's more choice for the athlete as well, which is what it's all about, right?
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you to you as well, not only for having me on, but as a coach, athletes can only come to stage in a way where like it depends on the coach's support, right? And that relationship is so key to the athlete's experience as well. So I just want to acknowledge you as a coach, and
Thank
because
you.
the athletes that have worked with you or still work with you who I interact with, like it's only positive, and I think that's lovely. So as a coach and as knowing the industry, there's always a variety that you get in coaching. So I just want to throw props your way.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it's no, look, I love my job. And it's great to turn up to a federation that's really well aligned, really well organized, and has avenues for the athlete to progress. And the girls would never, like Sophie, who won a pro card at your show, was never going to Boston. But then as soon as she won it, the question was asked and she went, "Oh, wow, okay, there's an opportunity here." And she had a wonderful time. So those sorts of things are fantastic, and the fact that is an opportunity within a show is great. So yeah, hopefully that continues.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Leah. Really appreciate it. And this will be dropped for those. Well, I can't say for those listening, but for you, Monday after next, it'll come out. So it'll be very much in tune with obviously following announcements just before the season kicks off.
Amazing. Thank you.
No problem at all.